Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is another broadcast from Commonsense Childbirth on behalf of the National Perinatal Task Force. I'm thrilled that you're here. Thanks very much for taking the time. This will be recorded for you to be able to enjoy later if you're unable to join us live. I am very excited tonight. We have a great panel. I have the pleasure of introducing to you Connie Livingston from the International Childbirth Education Association, ICEA. And welcome, Connie. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Jenny.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm very excited. I also have Diane Zimmerman, who is a childbirth educator and a very dear friend. And Diane is joining us tonight from Tennessee.
Yes.
Oh. From Nashville. And of course, Kathy Bradley, who is always here and working with us. We hang together, we do what we can do for Commonsense Childbirth, and as we develop this new model, a new product, we're calling it the National Perinatal Task Force. Our goal with this task force is to reach women around the country, women and men, who are interested in supporting change. We're ready for change, aren't we, Kathy?
Yes, ma'am, we are here, present, and ready.
Okay, so tonight we are going to talk a little bit around some of the questions that have come forward, but one of the particular topics that I want to cover tonight is what is a perinatal safe spot and how can people help us in getting the safe spots up and running? That's been a very, many questions have come. So many people want to help. I'm so excited about the numbers. We're seeing women and you know, people from around the country just asking, what can I do? I'm ready. I want to do something. I want to see this change. It's been too long that we've had these outcomes. So one of the most important things to realize is that when we are talking about a safe spot, we're talking about a specific area that is at risk for poor birth outcomes. Sometimes what we see is that we've got people who are in an area that just because they live there, they're not safe. It's not safe for them to be pregnant. It's not safe for them to be breastfeeding. It's not safe for them to be parenting. And so the Materno-toxic areas, we are specifically targeting those areas and trying to make sure that we get help into those areas. Okay? So keep that in mind when we say perinatal safe spot. We're not talking about putting a safe spot in an area that already has resources. We know every woman in every stage of their pregnancy or postpartum needs help. We admit that. This is America. Let's just call it what it is. But we have to make a specific targeted effort to the areas where we know, regardless, these efforts that we have made thus far have not changed these outcomes. Certainly in the last couple of decades, they, in some cases, have gotten worse. So I want to start with Connie, because Connie, the minute we had this idea, we put it forth, put it out into the public domain, Connie was one of the first people that jumped right in. I want to help. This makes sense to me. What can we do? Connie, tell us a little bit about your organization, what you're already doing, and what you think you'd like to see happen, or how we can partner to work on this issue.
Well, the International Childbirth Education Association is an organization that's been around. Next year we'll be celebrating 55 years, and we have been spreading childbirth education throughout the country and throughout other parts of the world. Obviously, the name is international. What I see our job, our work with the National Perinatal Task Force is to better raise awareness of how, not just racial disparities, but how we can actually solve these problems and work with you in the things that you have done that have actually worked. And on a larger scale, we not only raise awareness, but also maybe a conduit for some of the information that you want to pass along, and then eventually maybe assist you with trainings too, because our reach is so far.
I think you've hit some salient points. I mean, one of the most important things right now is that we work on things that are going to work. Practical, doable, achievable things for people to do so that even if it comes down to one-on-one, that's how it happens. That's how we manage to get something achieved. But as long as it's getting a result, like we're coming out the other end with a change in the outcome. And so I think that, you know, recognizing that from an agency perspective is powerful, because then it charges your members to look at this from a different way and see how can we essentially come outside the box. How can we charge them as well as support them, maybe in some cases train them to do the achievable and to make the change. Okay, Diane, can you speak a little bit about your approach, because you're also a childbirth educator. You're, you know, you work inside of this environment, in this world, but you don't actually live in a perinatal, you don't live in a materno-toxic zone, right?
That's right. I don't. And when I did some of my work with you there in Winter Garden, you know, my area of Winter Garden wasn't the materno-toxic zone, but I got to see firsthand the difference that we made, even just being with someone one-on-one. So I came up with 50 different ways that you can be an ambassador for perinatal safe spots that you can do without any training, you can do with very little money. All it takes is a caring heart and some time in most cases.
Well, and I have to thank you for that. Those of you who have been following along with us, this is our third Google Hangout at this juncture, and we do now have a website up and running, so this is like a really, really big deal. I'm excited to have that, because we always felt like we could keep all of our information about our different programs in one site. But this one needed a specific own website, and it's up now, and you can see this website at www.perinataltaskforce.com. Real simple, perinataltaskforce.com. And on that website, you will be able to see the tab which is labeled 50 ways you can be of help. And Diane was instrumental in helping us put that together. And I think that her experience was really key, because what we wanted to make sure was that we got across that this doesn't have to be very convoluted or difficult. You could just choose one thing. You don't have to do a whole slew of things. We're hoping that people that have a job already, that have responsibilities already, that are up to their eyes with their own family, that they would find there's one thing on this list that appeals to me, that is doable in my world, that I can do anyway without creating big ruckus in my life, but I can be effective with it. So that was really important. You know, you mentioned, Diane, that you worked inside of an environment where the women that were coming from these high-risk areas were coming for prenatal care here at our clinic, and that was your opportunity to connect with those women. But Kathy, can you talk a little bit about how, when you cannot reach those women directly, how you can be of service and support this work? Because again, our goal is to get to the outcome. How do we get that mother and baby to term? How do we encourage the breastfeeding? How do we support the continuation of the breastfeeding? When you aren't able to get in front of that woman, because you don't live in that area, you don't want to go into that area necessarily, you maybe don't feel comfortable going into, how can you get this done? What do you say, Kathy?
Well, I think that each person, you know, knowing where they live, what the surrounding areas are, knowing that there's a problem. I'm not going to keep going back to that, because those of us that work in the toxic zones, some of us may know that the problem actually exists. Many of you who've listened to our Google Hangouts before are aware that I worked alongside Jennie back and forth for 18 years. And it wasn't until probably 5 years ago did I really grasp what the situation was. And I worked at a hospital that, in the maternal education department, and where a lot of this was going on. We have a high population that suffers in the disparities piece. So I see people coming into the task force. They may not be living in an immediate toxic zone. Knowing the problem exists, first of all, the recognition. Recognizing and be willing to accept that, yes, here in the U.S., we are losing moms and babies more than 59 other countries. So
I think I want to stop you there, Kathy, for a quick second, because I just want to point out something. We had invited Darlene Turner onto the call, and she wasn't able to make it tonight. But one of the reasons I invited Darlene was that the main reason that we had, she had an experience where she's on. Hang on. Let me see if I can get Darlene to come in. No, I don't see how to. Okay. One of the reasons that Darlene really touched my heart was very soon after we launched the Perinatal Task Force, she reported in of a young mother in her neighborhood, a woman that she knew, who died postpartum in the ER from a high blood pressure postpartum. An African-American woman who, I'm not sure how many weeks postpartum she was, just a couple of weeks postpartum. And she actually died, leaving behind a newborn and a toddler. There's ways that you can get this information across. There's things that you can read. You can research online. You can go to your health department. You can ask your Healthy Start. You can Google. This information's out there. But when it comes right in your neighborhood, right close to you like that, when it hits you directly, there isn't any way that you could possibly understand and justify that this is happening all the time. So every day, at least 2 women are dying in this country, which is compared to some undeveloped, under-resourced countries, that's not bad at all, is it? But on the other hand, you've got to understand that inside of the amount of money we're spending on medical care, particularly obstetrical medical care, the amount of shenanigans that goes on inside of that care, the disparate ways that women are treated from a socioeconomic through a racial discrimination is a matter of life and death. And when you get that and you feel that and it hits you in your heart, in your spirit, it overwhelms you emotionally, then you get to a point where you realize, how can we just stand by? Like, we can no longer just stand by when we know that we've got this situation going on, and we have simple things that can make that difference. So right now on the panel, everybody's a childbirth educator. But if those women aren't coming into your class, how do you reach them? So Connie, like with your organization, and you guys have such an amazing reach because you're such a vast network of educators and students. What do you think we can do as far as getting this information not only to the educators, but then from the educators to people who aren't necessarily coming into their class?
I think one of the things that we have to do is make sure that what we're teaching is on their own level, that they can actually understand what we're teaching them, and then empower some of them to become educators and do peer-to-peer education. It would be very awkward for me, for instance, to go in and try to hold a childbirth education class in our downtown area. It would be very difficult because I don't think anybody would attend. But if there was someone of their own that they knew, somebody that they respected, that was also working and teaching and sharing this information, I think it would be very well accepted.
I agree. I agree. There's a dearth of educators of color, educators who are very familiar, who are very culturally competent. And it's not just women of color that are in jeopardy. Poor women across all races are in jeopardy because they are also disenfranchised and cut out of the access to quality care. And subsequently, they are not getting the opportunity to train in education, in doula work, even in medical professions, in a way that's meaningful. So it's a big undertaking, but I think it's doable. And I think it comes from a recognition that we need to support a pipeline, if you will, into professions that address these deep entrenched issues in the perinatal spectrum. So if we had a woman who had a really powerful birth experience because she happened to have a doula, maybe a friend of the family or someone from church, she may be interested in that work but wouldn't have any access other than perhaps if there are scholarships, if there's some extra conditions that allow that she might be able to get in childcare during the training, things like this. So it's really key, and I so appreciate your recognition of that and how it's going to make that difference. Because without that, we'll never bridge the gap. I don't see how we'll get past it. Yeah. I tried to get Darlene to join. I'm not sure if she's able to.
She says she's ready to. She's sending a message.
Okay, very good. All right. So the Diane, pick one of the 50 ways that you mentioned on your list, and let's discuss that, because I think people need practical answers. They want to know, okay, but I'm in this situation, what can I do? And if you do have a question, if you're listening and you'd like to send a question in, you can now send a question through the Q&A on the actual Hangout. Let me see. If you can see the Q&A, you can type directly into it, and we can see your question. Alternatively, you can go to our Facebook page, Perinatal Task Force, and you can private message, and we have someone there to pick up your message, and she will send it to us on the Hangout, and we'll try to answer your question. So, go ahead and, Diane, what have you got? Have you got a question for us or a pointer?
Yes. Well, I think to your point of, you know, maybe getting peers or community members trained or able to really connect with the women and empower them. I think that is the ideal situation, because the women who are in the community already know what the barriers to care are. They know what the practical physical needs are, and they can help the women navigate through, you know, those needs. And so I think one of the things that we could do outside of the zone would be either to provide money for a scholarship to bring a training to the area, or we could offer virtual education or doula support. Right now, one of my roles is I am the doula to the National Perinatal Task Force.
Yes, you
So,
are.
as a doula, you want to have your hands on the belly and rubbing the back, and sometimes I think there's just so many other ways that we can hold space and intention and help support these things. So I think offering to attend a community board meeting that's at the Healthy Start Clinic or something, where we can, you know, say this perinatal safe spot is being set up right now. So those kinds of things that we can do, either time-wise, offer our time to stand in, or financially support trainings, those sorts of things.
I think one of the easiest of all, and we have many doulas who have joined the task force, and many those who are in training as doulas or are experienced doulas. One of the most relevant things that any doula could offer would be to mentor, to be available. Because sometimes that's the hardest thing. It's such a lonely road doing this kind of work. And to be able to talk to someone else who's going through what you're doing and understands you in a way that maybe someone else doesn't get it, that's invaluable. And that's simply being willing to have the phone or the text, you know, receive a call, have a question answered. And so, you know, again, there isn't any specific prescribed way for you to be of help. But I think it's so important that as supporters on the periphery, supporters in the virtual world, supporters in the social media world, those, all of those ways can help bring awareness to the problem, bring direct practical support to the people on the ground, and not wear any one of us out.
Exactly.
Like, wouldn't it be marvelous if we literally achieved the revolution. Like, we literally achieved the perinatal revolution in that we changed the points on the disparity on those graphs and on those reports, that we dropped those points down simply by doing, like, this stuff en masse. Like, how intangible is that? Like, you really can't measure it because it is so individual. It's so strategic according to where you are, what zip you're close to, what resources you have or don't have, who you know. I sometimes have these daydreams about people. What if your brother-in-law sits on the board for March of Dimes? Like, what? It could happen, right? That all you need to do is to get hold of him and get him to understand where you're coming from and why. And that in and of itself could be such a shift. So, Kathy, I see you chomping at the bit there. What's going on?
Well, the thing that, you know, when I think of myself becoming an educator so many years ago and training under ICEA, and I know Diane, her background, when she moved from Colorado here to Florida and ultimately ended up working with us, I think we have to be willing to change our mindset about what education looks like. A lot of us traditionally want to set up a classroom, want all of our people to file in, we want to have the partners present, and we want to have this nice class where we can get an evaluation and they can get a certificate. And we really have to let go of what that traditionally looks like and look at, we're getting our nails done, right? I'm sitting there getting a pedicure, manicure, and somebody's pregnant sitting next to me. I need to know how to engage her and ask her, this may sound like a really weird question, but what's your greatest concern or fear going into having this baby? And then go right at it and address it and maybe give her tips or however it is. Are you getting feedback on me?
Yes, we are. We are.
That's really odd. I'm not sure what to do about that.
Okay, well, you made some really great points, Kathy. One of the things that I think is key, in fact, before we started, we were just talking, we actually, all of us met Connie at a hospital doing a presentation. So, Kathy, why don't you
and ask her, this may sound like a really weird question, but what's your greatest concern or fear going into having this baby? And then go right at it and give her tips or Jennie, I think that's Darlene that's doing the feedback. That's really odd. I'm not sure what to do about that.
Okay, well, one of the things that I think is key, we were just talking, we actually... Okay.
There we go.
Yes, it was. I apologize.
That's okay.
So, you were saying, okay, Kathy, you were saying, you made your point that changing your mindset because of we've got this sort of already inbuilt way of how we want things to go. And I think that it's really important that we're clear about the fact that before we go rushing in, we need to think through how are we coming at this already and what may need to change. So it's almost about checking judgment, taking that out of the picture, coming at it with a little bit more of a humble spirit. Because it's very easy to jump to conclusions. We think we know people, we think we know how they are, what they're thinking, what they're doing, why they're doing it. We all have that ability as human beings to be judgmental. And that's not going to help us in this situation. I really charge that a lot of these disparities happen because of racism, classism, sexism, decisions being made based on those ways of being and thinking. Decisions that do make the difference between life and death. And this is something that we don't talk about enough. We're training and sharing about the knowledge that we have, but we are not really incorporating the power of our lack of cultural competency when it comes to the impact of what we're doing. So we are having a little bit of trouble with the feedback, and I apologize. I'm not sure if you guys are hearing this clearly. I'm going to see if I can bring Darlene in, because I see that she's joined us. and let's see if we can manage. So here we go. Darlene, hi, welcome. Can you hear us? Okay, let's see. I've got to take off her. Okay, what happened? Darlene, I seem to have you on mute, but I don't know how to.
Her video went off too.
Oh, it did? Okay, now I have a video.
Oh, I guess on the one down below it is. Let's see what that is.
Okay. She's here, but we can't hear you, Darlene. I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Darlene, are you unmuted on yours? At the top, go to the, just scroll, put your cursor up to the top. You'll see on the left kind of a microphone.
Above your head.
But remember, she doesn't see herself. Well, yeah, maybe she does.
Okay.
See where it says live? Put your cursor up towards the top of the video. And you should see a drop down.
Nope. Okay. Well, we'll keep going. We'll see if she can join us. I know she has really important information to share with us. Darlene is a physician assistant, and she has an organization called Mamas on Bed Rest, and you can find her at mamasonbedrest.com, and she provides a service, a virtual support service for women who are on pregnancy bed rest. And she has some really great resources, and she's found a way to reach women all around, probably around the world, I'm sure not just around the country. And again, a creative way to be effective in that support and in the outreach, particularly for women who are at high risk, because they are literally on bed rest in an attempt to get themselves to full term. So if we do figure out how to have her join in, we will. And in the meantime, it's called Mamas on Bed Rest, and you can find her at mamasonbedrest.com.
Okay, she's unmuted at this point, but she's listening to an old, catching that old.
She has some really great resources, and she's found a way to reach women all around, probably around the world, I'm sure not just around the country. And again, a creative. I'm putting her on mute because it's the feedback that we can't manage. So I apologize, Darlene. I'm sorry I can't get you on tonight, but thank you for joining in. So we'll just go ahead and just finish around the main points of the conversation. So what I'd like to just address before we finish out this hangout tonight is, again, for resources and support for the supporters, these are the things that we want to keep talking around, because it's getting the supporters the way, getting them the tools to do more effective support. So essentially, what I'm on mute because it's the feedback that we can't manage. So I apologize, Darlene. I'm sorry I can't get you on tonight, but thank you for joining in. So we'll just go ahead and just finish around the main points of the conversation. So what I'd like to just address before we finish out this. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, we basically need to finish around coming back to the main points, which is that the purpose of the National Perinatal Task Force is to support the supporters. We want to see the change in the outcomes for women who are in materno-toxic zones, who are having difficulties achieving full-term healthy pregnancies, having difficulty with postpartum support and breastfeeding support. And we know that we can impact these statistics by getting more active and practical help where women are and by women who look like them. The purpose of tonight's task force meeting was to just illustrate to those of you that are not those women, are not living with those women or adjacent to those women, but want to help anyway.
Just turning her off.
With that in mind, I really wanted to highlight that organizations such as ICEA, who have come forward and said, we're here, we want to help, we're ready. We know that we can impact these statistics by getting more active and practical. Okay, so given the troubles that we're having, and I do apologize, I'm going to go ahead and finish out the hangout so that we can take any questions that you have. and send them please through the Facebook page to the direct message, the private message section of the Facebook page. The Facebook page is Perinatal Task Force. All right, we will answer your questions directly through the private message chat. And I apologize again for the technical difficulties that we're having tonight, but I think it's too hard to continue the conversation like that. So I want to acknowledge you, Connie, for coming on board. We had Connie Livingston come on board from the ICEA and has made a strong commitment to supporting this effort. Thank you, Diane Zimmerman, for coming on, and you were able to help us with that wonderful start with the 50 ways that you can get going and be an ambassador for the Perinatal Task Force. Thank you, Kathy, as usual, for being here to help us to present this information. And behind the scenes, thank you, Stephanie, for helping us with the technical things that you do. And I'd like you guys to just keep watching on the Facebook page. We have a Twitter, we have the Google+, and we are going to keep working on fine-tuning our Google Hangout skills. Thanks for bearing with us, because it's always a bit of a challenge, but I appreciate those of you that have joined. Thanks for listening in. And again, this is available probably tomorrow as a recording. So, ladies, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We will be in touch. And let's go. Virtual revolution, people. Let's do this. Thanks, and have a good night.
Thanks, Jenny.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.